In a Primetime exclusive, I sit down with Rudy Giuliani to ask what happened to America's favorite mayor. You're under indictment right now, accused of fraud, forgery, election tampering.
There isn't a single thing I've done that I can't explain.
Why have you been disbarred in New York? You don't filter yourself sometimes.
I'm a frustrated actor. Well, you better have your mask on tonight.
How can you have the biggest impact on America going forward?
He's the mayor of New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Rudy Giuliani.
Giuliani had earned a reputation for being tough on crime as a young assistant U.S. attorney. At 39, he was appointed U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, zeroing in on organized crime and white-collar criminals.
If you violate the law, whether it's insider trading or tax evasion or fraud or bribery, a so-called white-collar crime, the overwhelming general rule is that you go to prison. I, Rudolph William Giuliani.
After becoming mayor of New York City in 1993, Giuliani took credit for making Manhattan safe.
Gotcha. God bless you, Rudy.
Thank you, New York, for re-electing me to a job that I love so much.
Standing on the rubble of the fallen Twin Towers, Giuliani declared, "We will rebuild," becoming a beacon of hope and strength. But today, Rudy Giuliani faces mounting legal troubles and controversy. Tonight, in a Primetime exclusive, I sit down with Rudy Giuliani to ask what happened to America's favorite mayor.
Once lauded as a voice of leadership, America's mayor has become a punchline. Using his voice to spread conspiracies and lies about the 2020 election being stolen.
I don't know what you need to wake you up. I can prove to you that he won Pennsylvania by 300,000 votes. I can prove to you that he won Michigan by probably 50,000 votes.
As former President Donald Trump's personal attorney and mouthpiece.
Let's have trial by combat.
Prosecutors say he is a target of an ongoing criminal probe examining efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And more, Giuliani is suspended from practicing law in New York.
The call for Joe Biden isn't it? Who was it called by? Oh my goodness, all the networks. Wow! All the networks!
How are you, sir?
It's a great pleasure.
Good to meet you. So honored to meet you.
I must say.
Have a seat.
You're from Brooklyn here.
Yeah, apparently so. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well,
I've enjoyed your shows forever, particularly now, and big admirer.
Well, thank you. We're focusing on things that seem to be really important right now in this country's future.
You sure do. I commend you for that.
Tell me how you're doing.
I'm doing fine, but I find it strange to describe that to people when they tell me all the things that are going on with me.
Yeah.
But I think I'm constructed that way. I like to be challenged, Phil. I don't know what it is. I feel like if things aren't, not so much going wrong, but if there aren't things I can help with, I get into a feeling of I'm a little useless.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to help, and I like to think of my life as I'm contributing. And my main goal, which I'm worried about, is a little personal goal for me, that I leave this country better than I found it, for my children, my grandchildren.
Right. Do you ever feel like you've lived your life in two parts? Because there was a time when you clearly were one of the most beloved figures in American politics, certainly leading up to the weeks and months following 9/11, which was clearly one of, if not the darkest periods in American history.
Really?
And I personally want to thank you for the leadership that you provided during that time.
Thank you.
There's no question. I think back, and I was in Dallas when those planes struck the towers, and shortly after that, there are pictures of you walking down the streets towards what was happening and speaking to the American people, speaking to the world in such an inspirational way, not cowering, not panicking, being calm. You had approval ratings then. You were America's mayor. People were talking about you as someone that would be great as a president of the United States. And then in recent years, it seems to be a different chapter in your life where you're under indictment, you're being criticized. It seems like your approval ratings have dropped 50, 60% nationally, and you're under attack. Does it seem like there's two chapters?
Well, there certainly are. There's a tremendous conflict about me. Almost a divided America. I mean, it is weird, but I can take you to places where the support for me is stronger than it was then.
This seems to be one of them. A lot of people here feel very strongly about what you gave to this country.
And then there are places where they're hateful, mean, they won't listen to my explanation. They personally feel, I think, and I'm speaking for them now, that I'm some kind of an enemy to the republic, to democracy, that I'm a liar, I'm a cheat, I'm all the things that for half my life I never was, and I put people in jail, for. Somehow I made this big change. I guess because of my attachment to Donald Trump. I think that's it. So it's a little hard. It's hard for the person to understand that when you're always, when you always view yourself as pretty much the same person. I've changed. I've learned things. I changed a lot between September 11 and after. I wouldn't deny that I'm a different person after September 11 than before. I think mostly for the good. Am I pretty much the same person, same values that I was when I was going after the mafia and Milken and Boesky and communists, and I put Nazi war criminals in jail. I was threatened with murder by the mafia. They voted in my favor. I won 3-2.
To not kill you or kill you?
Not kill me.
Okay.
People say to me, what's the most important election you won? I said, well, the mafia voted 3-2 not to kill me.
That's good. There have been people when you've been in the public eye that haven't, I think, taken necessarily good care of you when you were on camera. You've got something on your chin right here. I'm going to tell you and let you wipe it off. There have been times when you had something on your face and somebody didn't tell you.
Yeah, I remember that. If that's what we're going to worry about, we're in deep trouble.
Right. So you're under indictment right now in Georgia.
That's right.
And Arizona.
Correct.
You're accused of all kinds of things: fraud, forgery, election tampering, goes on and on and on. Some took a plea deal. You said no, I'm not.
Correct.
I think you said hell no, I'm not going to do that.
That was probably what I said, maybe worse.
Yeah. And you're going to fight these in Georgia and Arizona, right? And this will come to trial at some point when?
Probably after the election, Phil, I think.
Yeah.
It almost seems impossible for it to go to trial before the election. I've got no discovery on this.
Are you worried about your indictments?
I was not. I think they go because people forget that this is based on a historical precedent. In 1960, we had one of our, historically close elections, Nixon, Kennedy. The night of the election, no one knew who won. One of the states in question was the state of Hawaii, because a lot of votes were military votes, thinking of Pearl Harbor and everything else. So they made a deal that they'd keep it open until the end of December, so that even when the Electoral College voted, if they voted, let's say, for Kennedy, because the vote currently was for Kennedy, if the court proceeding that was going to take longer than that eventually awarded it to Nixon, Nixon would get his votes. Problem is, if you don't have electors, you get your votes, but they can't vote. So you get deprived of 3 votes. They don't get voted anywhere, and that reduces the majority, makes it harder to get the majority. If you win ultimately in court, your 3 people will get awarded in before the vote on January 6th. They shook hands, both campaigns, both candidates, and I was a Kennedy Democrat at the time. Two men who were great Americans. Whatever you think of them, Nixon, Kennedy, whatever you think of Kennedy's exploits or Nixon's Watergate, these are two men who loved America more than anything else. And they realized this is a smart way to do it, sensible way to do it. So when you go down to December, lo and behold, it changes. Nixon gets the votes. The state court said, no, Nixon won by 342 votes. And Nixon, knowing now that they didn't make a difference, shook hands with Kennedy and said, oh, let's forget it. Let's put it in the record, though, as a precedent. So two professors that came to us, and they said, it's really important that you do this, because if you don't do this, you may win a couple of these states, and then you'll have no electoral votes. It'll be like winning them for no purpose. Now, if you want to ask me, and they can lie all they want, did I think we were going to win a couple of these states? You're damn right I thought we did. I did. I mean, whether I was right or wrong, my view as a lawyer was that if we had ever gotten a fair hearing anyplace, we'd have won every one of those states. I know the one place we got a fair hearing was the Georgia legislature. No one wants to read the report from Senator Litton after 132 witnesses that Trump won Georgia by over 10,000 votes.
You were actually disbarred for arguing this in New York and suspended in D.C. and probably will be disbarred in D.C., if not already, for arguing this.
Yes, I'm not allowed to argue the best view of the case for my client, which is they should be disbarred for that. The rule I have followed as a lawyer, which is 50 years of ethical conduct, never a complaint to the Bar Association about my misconduct. I litigated in the most contentious place in America, where if you don't have a Bar Association complaint, you're probably not doing your job. I don't know what I did. And I prosecuted, I would say, and you can dispute me if you want, I prosecuted the worst criminals of the 20th century. I do not think you'll find a more successful prosecutor in the United States of America.
Why have you been disbarred in New York, in your opinion? Why have you been disbarred in New York, in your opinion?
Because Joe Biden and his family particularly and unusually despise me. Why? You would too, if you were as crooked as they are. For years, I told you, I met Joe in 1981. He was introduced to me by my chief of staff as, you got to go over and meet him. He's the ranking Democrat on the Senate committee. Your job as Associate Attorney General is to get 170 U.S. attorneys and U.S. marshals nominated and approved by the Senate in 1 year. He's the kind of guy you can swing over. He's bipartisan. And Jeff said, I always liked him. We had a good relationship. One thing to warn you about, you can't believe how dumb this guy is. Nicest guy, dumb as hell. But he's the nicest guy, great jokes. But you are going to come away with a lot of meetings with him saying, how can somebody be that stupid? I know it's a joke. It's not meant to be. All of what I just told you is absolutely true. So I always thought of him as a chameleon, not evil, but he'll do anything the party. If the party puts in front of him, say that Star Wars is terrible, which turns out, of course, to be the savior of Israel. That's Iron Dome. Joe Biden was the biggest opponent of Star Wars. That's probably one of the dumbest things to have opposed. I once sat down and tried to explain to him, because I liked him. We would go to have drinks together, eat together. I would say to him, Joe, if an airplane can hit a missile in the sky and take it out, it can do that, right? Yes. And sometimes a missile can hit an airplane in the sky. Right. Why does that happen? Because one is faster than the other. I said, well, suppose we're just so much damn smarter than the Russians that we can always produce missiles that are faster than their planes. Could we take them down? Yes. He said, but that's not what it is. It's Star Wars. I said, no, that's a movie. This is what actually happens. I don't know if he was being stupid or he was being political. He refused to acknowledge it. But of course, that's what it is. It's a question of superior design, staying ahead of your enemy. But he never understood it.
And let me ask you about this. You said 50 years of practicing ethically and bringing down some of the worst criminals in our country's history. And there's no question about that. You were the first one to use the RICO Act against the mafia. Some of these guys wound up getting 100 years in prison.
Right.
That's what I mean about, like, there's two people sitting here. But in 1987, you also had prosecutors that went in and arrested and perp walked 3 traders on Wall Street, Wigton, Tabor, and Freeman. One of them, you actually put in cuffs and walked off the trading floor. And these guys, 2 of the 3, never had any charges filed against them. But yet it ruined their lives. And you said in '89 in a press conference when you were leaving as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, yeah, if we'd have known what we now know, probably wouldn't have approved that. Was that a publicity stunt? Was it an overreach? Were these overzealous young prosecutors? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's a little of all those things. It was, one, it was not an order to handcuff him. No one planned out in advance handcuffing. When the FBI and the Postal Service people got there, in the case of Mr. Wigton, he refused to leave. Said, come back after the trading day. Federal agents aren't that nice. When you say come back after the trading day, they're going to assume you're going to change documents. So they put him in cuffs and walked him out. The second guy got equally nasty with them, and they did that. The third guy, they didn't walk out. So it wasn't as planned as the next day. The newspapers loved the story and made it into a story that it was orchestrated by me. It wasn't orchestrated, it was happenstance. Did it have a good effect in a strange but somewhat unfair way? Yes. It scared the living daylights out of the Wall Street crooks. Now you say, well, were they Wall Street crooks? One of them went to jail for a deal of time. The other 2 weren't as seriously implicated, but they did cooperate. And they didn't get out because they were men of the year. They testified. A lot of people were never charged and testified for the government.
Was that prosecutorial abuse? Was it an overreach?
The putting of the handcuffs on was. They shouldn't have had the handcuffs on. To this day, I don't think it should have been done. And I do think, but I can't be 100% sure, that if they called me, I would have told them no. I didn't say that until years later, because I don't push off responsibility on the agents. I don't say, well, they made a decision I wouldn't make. They did.